I made this video on how the C8 Corvette could cost under $100,000 in Australia if GM and Holden wanted that. I was just about to upload the video when a report in motoring.com.au claimed a GM insider had revealed the C8 will be initially sold in Australia only in Z51 spec and 3LT trim. This equates to an Australian price of a minimum $150,000, and that's before on-road costs. This report, I'm afraid, has all the hallmarks of being accurate, and it'll shatter the aspirations of many Australian Corvette lovers. I've decided to release the video anyway, so you can see what could have been. But I'll follow up very quickly with another video giving my very frank thoughts on this decision. I've given you some pricing calculations before, but there were a couple of things I got wrong. I think I've got it pretty close this time, but I'm open to any feedback on my calculations. Let's get into why it could be sold for $99,000. This will be plus on-road costs, which includes the dealer delivery fee, registration and third-party insurance, and state government stamp duty. This could add another $10,000, but the base price can be quoted as 99,000 Australian dollars. I'm going to base my price on what's being offered in Canada. Why? A few reasons. Canada's the first country on GM's C8 export list, so we can take some lessons from that. Secondly, Canada's population is about 10% of the US population, and ours is about 7.5%. So in the same ballpark. Canada's not a huge market for Corvette, and although a little higher, the relevant numbers in Canada are in the same ballpark as Australia. The C8 entry price in Canada is a couple of dollars under 70,000 Canadian dollars. I've been told by a friend who lives part-time in Canada there'll be up to $10,000 in taxes in some provinces, which will need to be added to that price. But the base price quoted, or the price that GM can control, is 70,000 Canadian dollars. And at that price, the pre-orders in Canada are booming. I've read about a Chevy dealer who says he has maybe 18 months worth of orders. If GM can make a profit for itself, plus a profit for its dealers, selling the car in Canada at that price, then they can do the same in Australia. Let's do the numbers. 70,000 Canadian dollars going on today's conversion rate is approximately 76,900 Australian dollars. What's the difference selling it in Australia? Well, we need to transport it here, then we need to add the Australian taxes that it will attract. I'm going to allow 4,000 Australian dollars per car for shipping to Australia, which I think should well cover the discounted rate GM would be able to negotiate. There's something I had wrong last time. There's no import duty for cars imported from the US. Really, the only region whose cars attract 5% import duty is Europe, and they're currently discussing that now with Australia, along with the luxury car tax. Now I'm adding 10% GST, which is based on the landed price, including shipping. And without the luxury car tax, there's your C8 price, under $90,000. There's half a chance this tax will be gone by the time the C8 is on sale in Australia. That'd be really something. But for now, I'll add the luxury car tax. This has to be added after the GST. If you thought you'd get away with a GST of more than $8,000 added to your car on entering the country, then think again. The government taxes you on the tax. They tax their own tax. The GST now effectively becomes 13.5%, including tax. How crazy is that? But wait, there's more. To calculate the luxury car tax, we also need to take into account the dealer delivery fee. They want to make sure they tax that too. And how much is the dealer delivery fee? Sorry, I can't tell you. It's up to the dealer to think up a number. And that number has certainly got nothing to do with what they actually do on the car. If that was the case, $1,000 would be an absolute maximum. We've bought several cars where the fee's been deleted in the deal. But I've heard of delivery fees up to $30,000 and more on big dollar cars. It's whatever the dealer can get away with. With fingers crossed, I'll allow $3,000 for the C8. Now I need to do a side calculation on the luxury car tax. I'll add $3,000 to the $88,900, which gives us $91,900. The luxury car tax concerns the cost over $67,525, which changes each year. So we subtract that $67,525, and the luxury car tax is 33% of this. Now let's go back to the $88,990, add the luxury car tax, and that gives us a final amount of $97,034. And there's your C8 price. Let's give GM Holden a few more dollars for their trouble and settle on a nice sounding figure of 99,000 Australian dollars. So that's my case on how the C8 Corvette could be easily priced at 99,000 Australian dollars. Now I'll tell you why right-hand drive should be no more expensive than left-hand drive. A lot of people tell me there'll be a premium on right-hand drive because it'll cost more to make. This isn't correct, and I'll tell you why. First, we'll look at the design and development cost of the C8. I'm making an educated guess of about $3.5 billion, which I'm basing on the cost of the Zeta platform development at Holden in Australia, which cost $1 billion. Chevy currently sells a maximum of about 35,000 cars in a year, but usually only in the first year of a new generation. We know they're adding a second shift at the plant, so they'll need to be making something like 55,000 cars a year to justify that second shift. And I'm thinking they may be looking at about 7,000 right-hand drive cars within that number. Assuming 7 years of production of this generation of Corvette, they'll build some 385,000 C8s. Divide this into the $3.5 billion development cost, and you'll get to the nearest dollar, $91 per car. This is the development cost which needs to be amortised into the cost of each car sold. Now we'll look at the numbers without right-hand drive. Deleting 7,000 cars per year, production drops to a total of 336,000. I'd say the development cost for the right-hand drive specific development would be about 10% of that total number. So without right-hand drive, design and development cost becomes $3.15 billion, divided by a production number of 336,000 cars, and then the design and development cost becomes, to the nearest dollar, $94 per car. So the development cost needs to be amortised into the cost of the car actually increases when right-hand drive is removed. Now I've only allocated 10% of the development cost to right-hand drive, and I'll tell you why. The majority of the design and development work goes into designing the body, chassis and engine. There's no difference in the design work for the C8's body. It's the same. The chassis is also the same for right-hand drive, with just the steering rack having the gear section on the right-hand side rather than the left. But there's no development work there because it's all the same components, just some different tooling at the supplier. The engine and trans are exactly the same. Again, no right-hand drive cost there. The major difference in the cars is the dash and centre console assemblies. The design of both of these is basically the same from left-hand drive to right-hand drive. No separate design. Flipping the CAD model and adding some minor modifications gives us the right-hand drive model. All the components would be carryover, such as switches, dials, knobs and screens. Only the overall dash structure would be different, and that would need its own tooling. Most of the wiring harnesses would also be the same, front and rear, except for the dash harness. But there's not much work there. Basically it's the same design, put in backwards, but with the main connector on the opposite end. All the other wiring should be the same. Engine development, ride and handling development, steering, tuning, cooling and HVAC, lighting, seats and basically all the other components would be done on the left-hand drive car, and this would be carryover on the right-hand drive. I think my 10% costs assigned to right-hand drive design and development are more than generous, and this is all within the design and development budget, which I've already shown you. Works out at less per car when right-hand drive is included. Finally, there's the assembly line. I've got to say, a lot of my friends who've not worked in the industry or been inside an assembly plant have asked if the assembly line would need to stop building left-hand drive to turn around and build right-hand drive cars. Well, the answer's no, not at all. The left-hand drive and right-hand drive cars go down the production line all mixed together. The Holden production line was a good example. As well as right-hand drive and left-hand drive, there were 4 different body styles, and who knows how many combinations of trim levels, interior colours, powertrains and wheels. GM Thailand was the same on the Colorado line. It's all about the scheduling of the build list for each shift, with all the right parts arriving at their station in the right sequence. In fact, the Bowling Green plant is well used to building different variants of the C7 Corvette, different bodies, engines, transmissions, wheels and interiors. No problem for them. The relatively small number of right-hand drive components for the C8 won't be any more difficult for them, so there's no extra cost in running right-hand drive cars down the line. So considering that the design and development of the C8 doesn't make the right-hand drive cars more expensive, nor does the building of the right-hand drive cars on the assembly line, there's no case for saying the right-hand drive should cost more than the left-hand drive car. So that's how GM and Holden, if they'd have wanted to, could have priced the C8 here in Australia under $100,000. But it would appear they've chosen not to. I'm following up very soon with my thoughts on why this decision would have been made. And I can tell you that I, for one, won't be buying a C8 at that price. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Thanks for watching the video. I do hope you found it interesting, and if you did, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed, now's a good time to do so. It helps my channel stay alive. I also invite you to visit my new website, vetnews.online. It's now fully up and running with plenty of Corvette news, as well as links to all my videos. But until next time, happy vetting, and I hope to talk to you again real soon.